Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is SamElliott64, and welcome to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside,
And it's no one three two the Rollers Guru.
and Steve is busy at Disney, so he's not here today. Sadly, he's having fun. We have two guests this week. Guest number one, introduce yourself.
This is Hal Rucker from Team Black and Blue.
And guest number two.
Hey, this is Shayne Stadel, and I'm an armchair robot builder.
I'll come to you, Hal, first. Obviously, we missed your last fight with Lockjaw. You get to this stage of the season where at this point you're at 2-1. Because obviously you lost to Lockjaw. Do you change your approach? Like, do you start thinking, okay, I'm in with a shot with a bracket here. Do you kind of change the way you operate, or is it just keep going how you were?
Well, Lockjaw was an interesting match for us. If I could talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go right ahead.
Our strategy against Lockjaw was the usual try and stop his weapon. And then if we did, to try and manipulate him. So in that match, we did stop his weapon. There was smoke and it stopped. I think he turned it off, though. But in any case, our primary goal of stopping his weapon was successful, and then we tried driving him around and tipping him over and didn't do as much as we wanted. So then we resorted to using our new active weapon, which is to use our plow as a hammer with a spike on it to look really active and score points that way.
Yeah.
What we learned from that match was the judges and the audience didn't perceive us as hammering. It perceived us as being out of control.
Yeah, like from my perspective, while I was watching, I'm sure Anderson and Shayne, you kind of, I don't know if you guys look, but it looked like it was more flailing about rather than like controlled aggression, as you say, that's what you're aiming for. I think,
right.
In that sense, I get what you like. I think you can understand what you're going for with like the aggressive nature, because you have to score points, but it did, at least on the TV, at least come across as out of control, flailing about essentially.
Yeah, which was the first time we tried using our weapon in that way, and we learned an unfortunate lesson, which is we're not going to score points that way. Which was our new active weapon. So to get back to your original question, going against Quantum, it was kind of a bummer because our strategy against them was to actually let them bite us. And then we knew they were going to eventually, and then hit them.
Right.
But hitting them didn't score us any points, so it looked kind of pathetic at that point because we were trying to do what we were built to do, but it just wasn't working the way we had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go into that a bit more detail in a second. Shane, you were going to say.
So do you think there'd be a difference then if, like, with your plow and then kind of like a breaker boxes like hammer that they brought, would they then view that more as a hammer, like hammering with intent rather than like you having the plow to try and stop them with the spike on it that I've seen you added?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. I mean, if our hammer looked more literally like a hammer, would it be perceived as a hammer? Yes. But then you watch Blacksmith and, they're going crazy with their hammer and they still don't seem to get points for it very often. So I think it's just the optics for hammers don't look good. It's hard to score points with them.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have something incredibly... I mean, I think Blacksmith scores quite well for hammers, considering the fact that it is quite active, as you say. Like it's always firing, whereas you got your bigger hammers like your chomps or your Nellies. They're quite slow to retract, and they hit once and it's a big hit. I don't know. It is interesting the way you put it. Like it's almost like a disincentive to use a hammer, I suppose. But if it's one of those things.
Yeah, but it was a tough lesson to learn, and it affected how we thought about fighting Quantum.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously we'll get to that a little bit more in a second. Well, why don't we talk about that now? Let's talk about the fight with Quantum itself, because obviously, as I say, at this point you're at 2-1. You've had a fairly solid run, I'd say, at this point. Did you think going into this fight, were you a bit more cautious than maybe? Obviously, you're aiming to hit them with the pointy end of the plow. You know,
Yeah.
were you trying to like, kind of? I don't know. I don't know how to put it. Like, did you think you'd done enough by this point, or?
The 2-2 record?
Yeah. Did you think at this point, 2-2, you might sneak in there, or?
It's a really uncomfortable feeling being 2-2 and not knowing what the selection committee's thinking, because there are a lot of 2-2 teams.
Yeah.
We thought we had TV-worthy matches.
Yeah.
Except for our first one, but that wasn't our fault. So we were optimistic, but we really had no idea at this point what the selection committee was going to do with us.
Yeah.
I was more, if anything, I was a little bit peeved when they announced that we were fighting Quantum, because we just wanted at least one easy match.
I can understand why. I mean, you've had your strength of schedule is I mean, Bombshell. We'll get to them a bit later. That Bombshell notwithstanding, your strength of schedule is very good. I mean, obviously you fought Cobalt in that amazing fight. Lockjaw have on a really good run of form, and obviously Quantum is kind of. I think you put it very well. Like, afterwards, it was literally purpose built to eat you. It was just.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, you've got a tough run of things. I mean, I feel if it was me, in your position, I'd say that maybe one of the fights, wasn't the strongest, but I think your strength of schedule should carry you through, or at least put you very close. I think, but that's just me at least. But what did you think at this point?
We were thinking the same thing.
Okay.
We were very close against Lockjaw, and we were just victimized by Quantum. There's not much we could do. So I thought we did a good job, and I got a vibe that the selection committee was paying attention to us, but there's not much I can say beyond that.
Of course, obviously that would be very big NDA territory. We'll swiftly avoid that. I'm going to come to Anderson and Shayne quickly. I mean, what did you guys think of the fight itself? I mean, for me, this was a great innovation from Quantum to change the wedge from what was really not working with the kind of hinge wedge to a more solid one, and it seemed to work very well.
Yeah, this was, for me personally, although it was a bit one-sided, no offense, Hal, I do believe that it wasn't so one-sided as if Duck just got owned. Quantum still had to work for this one. Duck and I'm sure Hal will agree with me when I say it's a wriggly little bugger, and it really does like to get out of grip spaces. And it did take Quantum quite a few attempts to bite down. So it was a very tactical fight. And although it was a bit one-sided, I did think it was a very good, fun, entertaining fight to watch overall.
I agree with the wedge. I think that them changing it from the hinged one has definitely helped them out, especially in the fight against Duck, because earlier in the season you could kind of tell that they were having issues with that. But the fight itself, I mean, like everybody said, I mean, it was a losing fight for Duck unless Quantum ended up killing themselves, sadly. But I thought for what it was as entertaining as it could have been, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it was
Shayne,
good fun.
Shayne, you say that everyone said that. Sam bet for Duck to win.
I did. I did put them down to win this one, and I thought Quantum would come over all Quantum, and they didn't. So yeah, they didn't do that. I did notice though. I don't know how much you can go into this, Hal. Again, it's kind of maybe a bit of NDA territory. There's a little bit of fire going on in there. Was how much damage internally was there after the fight, or is this kind of a bit too NDA-y?
No, I can talk about it.
Okay, well, talk us through
it. None of the bites did damage except for the one that you saw the flame.
Yep.
Damage, I mean mechanical damage. Okay. Obviously, it did damage.
yeah, it went to the top.
And that one bit through one of our speed controllers, and the flame coming out of the speed controller came out of the same hole that was created by the same tooth. So It was perfect little chimney for the flame to come out. And that effectively destroyed the drive on our rear right wheel at that point. But everything else was still working. You could see that we hobbled our way back to our square at the end, which we were proud of.
I mean,
but that bite really got that one subsystem.
considering at this point, you know, you fought Bombshell. Okay, Bombshell had their issues. You fought Cobalt, Lockjaw, and now Quantum, and you still haven't been knocked out. I think that's pretty much a win, really. It's like at this point, you know, considering the amount of damage you'd taken, I think that's a fairly a decent effort, really. I mean, you know, they're all quite long fights. They're all, you know, maybe not this one, but it was a good show, and I think that. Well, again,
Yeah, it's.
go on.
You know, it really it comes back to the same issue for me and my teammates, which is it's fun to put on a good show, but it'd be really fun to win every single match.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that with a control bot like ours.
Yeah.
Especially because the kinetic weapons are just getting better and better and better. So that even when we win by a knockout, there's so much damage to our chassis and so on. So we survive, but oh my God, they're so vicious. You saw it. What they did to us.
Yeah, I mean, Lockjaw, you know, isn't particularly renowned as a particularly, you know, high-end spinner, but like it certainly did some damage to yourselves. I mean, like
Yeah.
I think was that your second plow that was kind of not wrecked, but it was certainly buckled at the end of it, wasn't it? Really.
Wait, against which match?
Against Lockjaw, I think it was. I think it was slightly bent, wasn't it?
Nah.
Oh, was it? No,
No.
oh, that was all right. I'm misremembering.
I thought we should have won.
Shut down.
But
Oh really? Oh really?
yeah, but man, Cobalt did a number.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that thing is pretty scary. We'll get to them as well a bit later on.
What were your first thoughts when you got the draw of Cobalt? So, sorry, unless we want to save it for later.
I was talking about that. Obviously, you know, we talked a bit about Cobalt when I think we fought them actually before. But what was your reaction considering what they did to us, poor Sub-Zero?
I know it sounds irrational, but I actually look forward to tough spinners.
Okay.
I would have rather fought Tombstone than fought Quantum.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just embarrassing to get controlled like they did to us. But if you get beat up by Tombstone, at least you got, you know, drama points.
True.
Yeah, we're just not built to take on bots like Quantum. So
Yeah.
Cobalt, I actually look forward to it.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you know, it is a very different style of machine you're fighting. You know, it's not necessarily, you know, Quantum, as we said already in the episode, you said they were perfect to bite you, and so it was. You know,
Yeah.
a nice flat surface for them to grab.
So it does raise the question: why would anyone build a robot that only works against one type of opponent? And the answer to that is, we thought our lifter would be better at lifting.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about the because it was I think you mentioned about your small beak as well. I think I don't remember exactly, but I want to say you did.
Yeah,
in the episode.
our opponents were slipping off our beak, and we had a bigger problem, which was the geometry was really symmetric and cool in that sense. But what would happen is if we were trying to lift something heavy, this is hard to visualize, but our front wheels would slip underneath us rather than lift our opponent.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
So your body would
you do a
rotate
front
instead.
flip.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so that, you know, instead of getting a real dramatic lift and doing something effective, we were just looking like we were flailing because we were bottoming, our bottom wheels would slip under us.
Okay. It's interesting that, you know, obviously it's not a design flaw as such. It's more just like it's one of those unfortunate things that you can't really visualize until you actually, you know, fight the thing really.
Yeah.
I think we'll move on from Duck and Quantum. I think there's not much more to add in case anyone else has anything.
I just want to say I think it was very noble of Hal not to duck the challenge, really.
Oh, God. Stop it.
That was dreadful. That was terrible. We'll move
It was
on.
foul.
Oh no. You've got me in a flap now, you really have. Right.
Yes!
Blacksmith and Captain Shrederator. first of all, I want to say a big congratulations to Al Kindle for finally getting a knockout. I think it's long overdue. I also really like the fact that they incorporated, that kind of more traditional wedge at the front rather than just using like the forks that they have done for most of this season. I think they did really well to kind of tank those early hits, because Shrederator, as much as they've had a rotten run this year, they do have the capability of it hitting very hard, and I think it does kind of go unnoticed. But they kind of frisbeed around the arena again. It was your typical Shrederator fight where they just kind of eventually broke down because of various reasons. Obviously, they got flipped over in the end as well. But well, guys, I'll open it up to you. Take it away. What do we think?
Well, I'll say this much: it was Captain Shrederator's best match.
Yes.
This season
yes,
so far.
No, I'll give you that. It really was.
I genuinely actually there was a part of me that thought they're going to win this, and then they started smoking and their spinner stopped working. In typical Captain Shrederator form. But I also thought that Al Kindle's tactics of using the hammer sort of like a clamper was pretty cool. It was a good idea. Because they sort of like grab hit them, and then they would use it to sort of guide them around the battle box and into the hazards, which I thought was a really, really clever use of the weapon. Because we don't really see that much from hammers. No. We saw it from axes back in the day, because obviously they could spike in and you could drag them around, but you don't really see it from hammers. And yeah, I mean, this Blacksmith was on a mission in this fight, and yeah, they pulled it through for them in the end.
Yeah, Shayne.
I was really interested to see if Blacksmith was actually going to try and fire the hammer with Shrederator's the higher, I don't know what you call it.
The Freedom Wings.
Is that what they were?
That's what they were called, the Freedom Wings. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I was really interested to see how those were going to play into it, but I think Al was smart in just trying to use the wedge to have Shrederator beat themselves again, rather than him trying to accidentally get his axe ripped off by hitting him.
Very violent tactic.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was a really good fight. I really enjoyed watching it.
It's always good when Blacksmith's on full form, because you get the flames going, and they always put on a good show. Like, regardless of the result, it's not a machine that you can knock out easily, as we've seen so many times in the past, and they always put on a good spectacle.
He was going mad at the end as well. I mean, they were dead. They were just pounding them away. I mean, it's like, just leave it alone. Please stop, Al. No, it was wonderful.
I mean, Hal, obviously watching this back, how do you rate Blacksmith? Obviously, we mentioned them earlier. You can't really score the points with the hammer as easily as, say, your kinetic energy spinners. But like, how do you rate them as a machine and as a unit?
Well, it kind of goes back to the previous point, which is, it was great to see a hammerbot, especially a really well-made hammerbot like Blacksmith, win on a knockout.
Yeah.
But he didn't win the knockout using his weapon. It just gets to the point of how difficult it is to win with a non-kinetic weapon. Having said that, I was really happy to see Al win it. He's had a lot of close calls, and to win by a knockout was a great victory for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, as much as Shrederator, yes, they've had a kind of rough run this season, and they've kind of been on a bit of a down streak. Blacksmith, as you said, they took SawBlaze so close on that judge's decision, and I think it would have been very unfair on Blacksmith for them to not pick up a win this season. Have they won already this season? I don't think they have they? No, because they beat Kraken. That was it. They did beat Kraken. I take it back.
I think they're...
Yeah, they're 2-2 now, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I will say
one of
this.
those 2-2 bots.
There's so many. There are so many.
This season's so much more difficult to predict who's going to be in the top 16.
Yeah, really.
I will say this: Duck versus Blacksmith is actually a dream battle for me. I would love to see those two fight.
Hal, would you like to take on Blacksmith one day?
Not my first choice strategically, but
yes,
in terms of having fun, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think
it would definitely go 3 minutes. It would be a driving match. There'd be fire and there'd be flailing.
What's not to love?
Absolutely. A bit of roast duck afterwards, maybe. Who knows? Well,
exactly.
Exactly. We'll move on we'll move on to poor Bombshell, and they're. I mean,
They nearly had it.
I tell you what, as soon as they hit Lockjaw's wheel, I thought, oh my god, it's happening. Bombshell are finally going to break their absolutely horrendous run of form, which I feel so bad for the team because they've gone back to this old design. It worked so well in Season 2. It just isn't happening for them, and they got that great hit at the start on Lockjaw. I'm thinking, okay, Lockjaw are struggling. They can't drive properly, but credit to Donald Hudson again. The way he wrangles that machine around the arena, just fair play to the guy. And eventually he got Bombshell to kill itself with its own spinner, which was kind of sad, really, because it just kind of got beached on itself, and that was the end of it. But my God, I think when Bombshell does connect, it does connect very well. It's just a shame that it just isn't happening for them. I feel really bad.
Yeah, you could just see the looks on their faces after every match. It's like, damn it, what's going wrong here?
There's so much there that the work that is good. It's a vertical spinner. It's got the 4-wheel drive. It's all the pieces are there. It's just not connecting.
No.
Yeah, they just had such a rough time with Murphy's Law. It's just and they're first of all, they're super nice people.
Yeah.
So seeing the look on their faces like that is really sad. And then second of all, they're really, really good builders. They know what they're doing. So it's just the gremlins got them this year. At least this far. We don't know what else happens. But yeah, for the first four matches, there were gremlins everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it comes with building a new machine. There's always trying to bed it in and things like that. But Bombshell in the last 2 seasons, they obviously they beat Tombstone and somehow ended up beating you in the Rumble, Hal, last time as well. But other than that, they're in the regular season for the last 2 years. They're 0-8, which is really quite shocking considering they came second back in 2016. It's a shame because they have the potential's there. As I've already said, the machine itself is a good machine. I just think they've had a very rough run of schedule as well. Don't get me wrong, they've had some horrendous opponents to fight, but it's just not happening for them. And as you say, the looks on their faces afterwards, it's not nice to see a team look that dejected after working so hard, and it does hurt me to see that. But on the flip side, Lockjaw very impressive. The fact that they were able to keep going with that damage on their wheel, clean shot from Bombshell. Fair play to them, but again, Donald just somehow extracting everything from that machine. It's really on a nice, sweet run of form again. It's Lockjaw.
Yeah, they were a bit lucky though.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, there's no denying that, but.
I got really worried when I saw that first hit on the wheel and then see the wheel lock up, and I was just first 10 seconds of the fight. I thought Bombshell would have had it their first win in 2 seasons in the regular season, and it just couldn't happen for them.
No, it's a shame for them, but yeah, again, Lockjaw at 3-1. I think fairly sure they're going to be in the top 16.
Yeah, top 16, maybe the bottom half, maybe top half. I'm not too sure.
I mean, they've only lost to Tombstone. Yeah,
to be fair, they have only lost to Tombstone. And I will say this was a bit of a disappointing battle in my opinion. I don't know about you guys, but I was expecting a bit more from both machines, and unfortunately, neither of them really worked in the beginning. So, yeah,
Bombshell having to go backwards for most of the fight as well, kind of stop them from engaging with their weapon as well, which kind of sucks. Which is, again, it's one of those unfortunate things. If they were able to drive fully, they'd have easily won the fight because Lockjaw was struggling, but it wasn't meant to be.
Just to put salt in the wound for Bombshell, as they're getting counted out, Lockjaw bursts into flame.
I know. Just another 5 seconds more of Bombshell moving, and then they've been fine. But
the laws of the sods, man.
Yeah.
The laws of the sods.
Yeah, it's a real shame for Bombshell, but Lockjaw on fire. But I think fairly certainly through to the top 16. We'll have to see in a couple of weeks' time for that.
When we said that Lockjaw was on fire this season, we didn't mean this.
Not literally. They've been, I mean, it's not the first time they've had some smoke issues with their motors and some pyrotechnics go off, but, it is what it is. We'll move on to Tombstone and Gruff. Now, there's been a bit of first of all, good fight, very good fight, we'll get to that in a second, but there's been a lot of controversy again online with, Gruff was robbed. I I don't think they were. Like I watched this back, and yes, I can get the control aspect. Gruff controlled the fight for most of it, and then towards the end, the more damage they accumulated, I think there was a big hit that Tombstone took part of the flamethrower out at one point. As soon as that hit happened, for me, the dynamic of the fight changed, and Tombstone just started to, Ray started to really control the fight, and Gruff slowly, piece by piece, was getting torn apart.
But
go on,
that's what I was going to say. I'm on this fence where I can look at both sides of it. I mean, I genuinely would have been happy if either of them got announced the winner for that fight. It was very, very close. It was basically a fight of two halves, I felt. The first couple of minutes was pretty much all Gruff, and then Tombstone, like you said, started coming back towards the end. But what I thought was interesting was, because Ray couldn't do his usual 2 or 3 hits and you're dead tactic, he had to slowly grind them down, and that's exactly what he did. So even though Gruff was getting all those good attacks in the beginning, they were still getting hit by the bar spinner, so there was still damage being done there. And unfortunately, all those hits are going to add up eventually. That's what happened by the end of it. Because, I mean, Gruff looked knackered at the end of that fight.
It looked fairly finished, didn't it?
His weapon was buggered. Its wedge was buckled out of place. I think its frame was completely twisted. Like, I mean, you saw its wheels at the back. Like, one was completely off the ground. Mm-hmm. And it was barely moving at the end as well. And I think that alone, that last, 30 seconds where they were barely moving, I think that sort of might have just raised it towards Tombstone. But it was a fantastic fight.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was silly. One of Tombstone's best, in my opinion, and certainly one of Gruff's as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a great fight watching it. I feel like the end of it, when Gruff finally started to lose drive, is kind of like you just said, swayed it towards Tombstone, in the same way that Bombshell's fight against Yeti last year swayed towards Yeti with the damage at the end.
Yeah.
But I feel like one thing that they could do to kind of start avoiding less controversy is, I like how they showed the fight card, but if they showed the total accumulated points like they used to in the old series of BattleBots on Comedy Central, to kind of paint a better picture for everybody, to show this person scored this many points in this category total, this person this many points total in this category, and so on and so forth. So it's not like this person won by a unanimous decision when it was really a really close fight. It was kind of the same thing with the Mammoth fight. When they said unanimous, a lot of people were upset because it obviously wasn't unanimous, but on the points it was. So I think if they showed the points more, then people would get less upset and they'd kind of understand it was unanimous in these categories, but it was still a tough fight.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I mean, a bit like they do in Fight Court. Little plug there, Psycho.
Yeah, remember Fight Court. Oh dear. Anyway, Hal, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, you fought Tombstone, and not that you're the same as Gruff, but you have a similar ethos of kind of break their fist with your face kind of attitude with Duck. How did you see the fight go?
Well, first of all, it was just, as a audience member, it was fantastic to watch.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. In part because Gruff did what Gruff was supposed to do, and then Tombstone survived it all. In terms of the outcome, I agree that Tombstone won. But it was very close, especially when Gruff did that final lift right before the buzzer buzz. But again, I've built kinetic weapons and ones that aren't kinetic, and I'm living in the world of the not kinetic, and I have to sympathize with Gruff on it, because what's a lifter got to do to win a match? He absorbed all the hits. He literally lifted him up in the air. He was aggressive. He shot him with flames. It's just so hard to win. He just put on a fantastic fight and still lost. Not because the judges were wrong, the judges were right, but it's just so hard to beat a non-kinetic to beat a kinetic.
Do you think that a change in the scoring system for bots like hammer bots, control bots, and wedge style like Duck and Gruff, do you think a change in scoring for them versus kinetics would kind of help with that, or what do you think?
I really, really do. I don't like the scoring system, but That's a 3-hour discussion.
Maybe in the off season. Maybe in the off
Let's
season.
get a cup of tea, lads, and we'll get on. There we go.
But-
I'm really
but-
down for doing that, by the way, in the future if you want to do it.
Yeah, but in terms of putting on an entertaining TV show, I think the powers that be are being really smart about it.
Yeah.
I think we've had a lot of fantastic matches this season, and part of it is because of the way the rules are.
Yeah, it is one of those things where it's obviously you're never going to please everyone. I think that's another thing as well. You know, if you change the rule to suit one type of weapon or bot style, then another one's going to suffer as a result. It's always going to be a compromise. There's no clean cut way. Otherwise, everyone would do it, right? So.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe they could like introduce a new category just called weapon use. So like say you get a good few lifts in with your weapon or a few good hits in with your hammer. Yeah, they don't score much on the damage side of things, but you still did use your weapon, you know, for the majority of the fight, and you definitely gave it a good go. I mean, maybe that. I mean, I don't know if that counts as aggression. Maybe I don't know. I mean,
I think it is. Yeah.
They used to have strategy as a point.
See, that
for
should
strategy,
be a
but
category.
It was too hard. It was too subjective. It was.
Yeah, it's difficult to judge, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Hence why we're not judges.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true.
We like to
No.
think that, but we're.
No, I don't want to overstate my objection to the point system. I don't think it's bad. I just think if I was king of the world, I'd do it a little differently. But I'm not king of the world.
Not if, when. There we go.
So I just get to go to their party and have fun.
Fair enough. It's it's at the end of the day, as I think we've kind of said before, it's their house, their rules, sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
With that said, we'll move on to two big kinetic energy spinners in the form of Endgame and Cobalt. Very similar in terms of design and style. Two big vertical spinners.
This was such a disappointing fight, guys. It really was.
So I don't know if you guys saw Cobalt's post before this. They changed. In fact, because of the fight with Hal. Well, one of the really reasons they changed it was because of the fight with Hal, and obviously they got stuck on the floor. They changed to bigger wheels so that they could kind of have a bit more, sway and kind of drive off. I think that probably didn't help them in this case because I think Endgame were lower.
They were, yeah. They kept getting underneath the front, hence why the front wedge went on Cobalt.
That
was one of my biggest.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say they also seem to have a little less control with them as well.
I think one of my.
Go on.
Sorry, I keep interrupting Anderson. I'm sorry.
No, go on. Go for it.
Going into the fight, I was really worried about Endgame having those hinged wedgelets versus their one fixed one that they've got.
I think it is hinged as well.
Is it?
It was flapping around a little bit, but as you say, there's four of them rather than just the one. Yeah,
and that to me was what I thought was going to be their downfall, and it, I guess in the end, kind of was. But
I did feel bad because obviously they have that one pokey wedgelet at the front end, but they still have a wedge front. So you think, they should just be able to drive underneath. If they catch them on the side, then they'll be fine. But I think in this case, again, Baldy can correct us if we're wrong, but the wheels, I think, because they were bigger, they kind of lifted the front off as well, or they weren't able to be as flush to the floor as they would have been if they were using the smaller ones. So I think had they kept the smaller ones and they lost their wedge as they did, they may have still been able to get under. I think maybe in this case the wheels hint. I don't know, but credit to Endgame. I will say massive credit to Endgame because they got a huge hit on Cobalt. Man. It was like halfway up the box, and Cobalt just landed on the floor. You just kind of think, well, that sure was a hit.
Where was that earlier on, lads?
So for me, again, this kind of Endgame's now at what 2 and 3. They lost in the Desperado, but they won one fight. Does it play them into a top 16 place? Probably not, but I'm glad they've kind of stopped their rot. Kind of where Bombshell were at, because Endgame had lost, I think, was it 6 fights in a row or something stupid? They lost a lot of fights back to back. And I think they were kind of, you could see they were kind of getting a bit dejected, they lost to Ribbot, they lost to Death Roll, struggled against Minotaur. Fair enough, Minotaur was exceptional, but it was nice to see them, break the mold sort of thing and get a win.
They did break the mold, didn't
Yeah,
they?
they broke the molds. Yeah, very good, very good.
I do apologize. I will say this. I mean, again, credit to Endgame, because I don't think anyone gave them a hope in hell of winning this fight. Because Sam will vouch me for this one. We are on numerous robot fighting Facebook group chats.
Yep.
And we often have predictions and all that. And this was the only fight, I think, where every single person predicted Cobalt would win. I don't know a single person who thought that they would lose this one. So I can imagine quite a few people's chins hit the floor when they sort of get yeeted.
I mean, in fairness, you have to look at the pedigree here. I mean, Cobalt's at this point, have been fairly dominant. Okay, lost to Hal and Duck, but like they've they give it a good kick in first. And Endgame has been a bit. Is it fair to say flaky this season? They've kind of not had the reliability like as they would have hoped. So, you kind of think, okay, well, Cobalt's just going to drive under it, hit it once, and Endgame's going to be finished. But wasn't the case. I was very surprised that Endgame were able to capitalise on a change in strategy for Cobalt. Hal, I'm going to bring you in here quickly. What do you reckon?
I wanted to see Cobalt do more destruction so that I didn't look so bad getting destroyed. I don't know. 2 big, heavy spinning discs hitting each other. Who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, it was a. It was
I
a
was
fight.
surprised that Cobalt couldn't self-right.
I think it's a case kind of like Aftershock over in the UK. If the disc isn't spinning, then it can't get over. I think as much as Endgame have kind of sacrificed some weight to put a Shreemech on, and Death Roll as well for that matter, they both have active Shreemechs as well as their weapons that can self-right them if it's spinning. I think Cobalt did have that in China. They had the axe, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, Top 3 had the axe to help them.
So bring back the
They
axe.
never actually used it as a weapon. They never used it as a weapon.
No, they didn't. Which, I believe again. I'm sure Mulder can correct us if we're wrong, but they had the axe as a weapon, quote unquote, but it was more of a self-righter. And obviously the spinner was the main bit. But
I just assumed, Cobalt has that big brushed motor. I thought they'd have enough startup torque to keep spinning. So I wonder if it broke or it was not enough torque. It'd be interesting to find out from them.
I could have seen him it dying after that huge hit because they got knocked around hard.
Yeah, it was a big old hit. I mean, again, I'm sure Dave will let us know if he was dead after that hit. Obviously, I'm sure they would have flicked it back over and give it a quick test. But credit to Endgame, they got a big win.
Yeah, I could have seen that going either way though. I mean, because I think there was probably 2 or 3 times where Endgame was doing the gyro dance and Cobalt just missed him. So I mean, it was either one hit was going to change that entire fight, and I think Endgame getting that one hit was obviously it was the game changer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We'll move on
and that
to
makes Cobalt another 2 and 2.
Yeah, I know. There's so many. With Cobalt, I think the thing that's going in their favour is that when they lost to yourself, Hal, I think it was fair to say they were winning the fight until that point. So maybe that'll swing in their favour again. Who knows? It's a difficult one to kind of judge with that machine.
Yep.
I was genuinely worried Tombstone was going to end up a 2-2 bot as well after this episode with the fight with Gruff because it was that close.
It could have done.
Yeah.
That'd have been very strange to see Tombstone down at 2-2, but it is what it is. Anyway, we'll move on to, first of all, thank God, Ribbot with the colour scheme. That was great. I love that. To try and confuse SawBlaze.
Even if it did just last 15 seconds.
I know. It was for those 15 seconds, it was gold. Ribbot versus SawBlaze. Matching colours in this occasion. SawBlaze shredding the top off within, as you say, 15 seconds. Was it a fight? I mean, SawBlaze just dominated here. This was an incredible driving display.
It was just bloody good fun. I think that's where to say.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, SawBlaze, okay, the weapon, I think the saw got twisted and bent at one point, or it split or something. It looked fairly knackered at the end of the fight. I believe the Ribbot team ended up getting it afterwards as well. which is quite nice. We got to see Ribbot naked, like fully naked for the first time, which was quite cool. But I mean, SawBlaze were on it on this fight. They just did not give him a moment's breath, did they?
Yeah, Jameson Go was just relentless. It was just daft. Even when their disc broke, they were like using it as a hammer almost.
I've noticed he started doing that a lot more this season. I think memories of the Razorback fight from a couple of years ago maybe still quite fresh, and I think
we don't discuss that.
Yeah. But like, you know, even back then, obviously the weapon wasn't working, but they didn't hit anyone with it. But like, no, now he just just whack it with the blade, even though it's not working. It's great. I love it. Again, credit to Ribbot. They kept going. They didn't, die. I think they were starting to struggle towards the end, but they kept going, which also puts them at 2-2. It's becoming quite a theme. But SawBlaze at 3-1, I think they can be fairly satisfied, and I think they'd be fairly unlucky not to get in the top 16, don't you?
If they don't, I'm going to go over to America and I'm going to find the producers and I'm going to demand an explanation from them.
I mean, SawBlaze, they've only lost to Tombstone, so you can't really complain at that.
And they gave it a good fight as well.
They did.
And it's pretty much dominated every other fight it's been in as well this season. So it's definitely a contender for there. It's one of the few where I actually could probably guarantee it would get in there. There's a lot of ifs and maybes this season, but this is one of the few robots where I think, that's going to be in the top 16.
Hal, I want to bring you in again. What do you think? SawBlaze as an entity, like how do you deal with it? Because it is quite a big machine as well. Like, it's difficult to deal with.
Well, I thought this match was a really good illustration of a veteran versus a rookie.
Yes, that
both machines were well made and both machines operated, but Jameson's, I don't think he gets enough credit for his driving skill. He is amazing.
He drove it like he stole it. It was incredible. Like just the way that he just, it was almost instantly. He was like on top of Ribbot and just didn't give him a second to breathe. Yeah,
and that's not that easy to do, especially with a two-wheel bot that kind of swervy. So hats off to SawBlaze. It's just a really well-made, interesting, well-driven machine. They deserve their record.
Yeah. Okay. Anything more to add? I think that's pretty much it for Ribbot and SawBlaze. Other than the fact that I think, Ribbot. I really want to see a different guise for Ribbot. We know it's got the different attachments for weaponry, so I'd like to see something different. Shayne, go on.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything to add. I agreed with everything you guys had to say.
Oh, fair enough.
I have a personal quirk with Ribbot, which is I don't like having outfits on robots that get torn up all over the arena. There's something aesthetic that bothers me about it. Doesn't really matter what I think, but just thought I'd put that out there in the world. I mean, like foam outfits.
I dig the fact that they put a new suit on it every time. I think that's kind of cool, but like it does leave a bit of a mess afterwards. I feel really sorry for the guys up kind of manning the arena who have to clean it up afterwards, because I imagine it takes a good chunk of time to do that.
Yeah.
I suppose we'll move to the main event, which was Rotator and Death Roll. For me, this was just hands down a Death Roll, masterclass. This was spot on the whole way through. I have no faults with them, and Rotator were just beaten by the better machine.
They were getting buggered. It's the scientific technical term for that.
Yeah, of course.
But fair credit to Rotator. That thing got absolutely willied, and it was still working by the end of it. I mean, fair play. That thing is a tank. It just doesn't die.
Unless you bite force.
Unless you bite force. But I mean, nothing survives bite force apart from Chomp. I still have nightmares about it. I wake up thinking about that every night. You know that, guys.
Dear me. Death Roll.
Oh, Death Roll's on. Death Rolls are just it's almost bite force levels of daft. It's not quite there yet, but it's almost there. It's a solid, worthy machine, and it's definitely a top 4 contender.
It's a top 4. Top 4. I mean, at the end of the day, they're at 4-0. They've beaten 5 Foxtrot, okay, fair enough. But they've beaten Endgame, who've shown that they've got the capability to dish out the punishment when they need to. They've beaten... Who else was it they beat? It was, obviously, Rotator tonight. And who was the other one?
Oh, God.
It's going to bother me. I'm going to have to look it up. So we talk about Rotator while I'm doing that. Rotator at 2-2, I think, again, because of their strength of schedule and the fact they've lost to SawBlaze, not really that bad of a loss to have, and they lost against Deathroll, who are at 4-0. Fairly certain they'll be knocking on that door for top 16 again.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the fact that they've beaten Tombstone as well is a big feather in the cap. Not many teams can say that they've done that.
So who was Deathroll's 4th match with?
I'm trying to find it now. It's really going to bother me. Who was it?
I can't remember.
It was Quantum. There you go.
Of course it's
Yeah. They chewed the wedge off, that was it. Yeah. So Deathroll I think they can be very happy with their run to 4-0. I think they can't really... You can't really say that they've had an easy run. They've fought 4 good machines. I mean, can they win it?
There's definitely a strong chance that they can now, surely. The only robot I really see giving them a tough time is Bite Force, in all honesty, and probably maybe Tombstone because of the reach, but Tombstone's been given a good kicking this year, so...
I think the thing that interests me, obviously, there's quite a few teams that were in the Chinese show King of Bots this year, that were in BattleBots this year. You know, Quantum have been there, Deathroll have been there, and the other one, Shatter as well. Yeah. So far, you know, Quantum kind of struggled a little bit. He's kind of picked up with a late win against Duck. For me, Deathroll has adapted so well, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't, like, you know, you kind of think, okay, Great White maybe should have done better in King of Bots, but Deathroll's really adapted well to, you know, this season, and they've been fantastic. Like, wow. I don't
Their
really know.
reliability is nuts.
Yeah.
The fact that they can take and dish out as many hits as they can, like they haven't had drive issues yet this season, have they?
Nope.
It's like they got absolutely smashed by Endgame to start, and then they just kept going in for more, and then started dishing back.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't... So far, other than, as we said, Bite Force, I can't really think of anyone who's at that kind of level. Like, they're just so untouchable sort of thing at the moment. They've been fantastic, and fair play to the team. They had a really rough time in 2016.
I'm going to say, to think, they lost in round 1 to Captain Shrederator in 2016.
It shows how far they've come.
Yeah.
Like, in such a short amount of time, they've looked at the machine and said, right, there's obviously some good things that are in here, and they've worked on it, and it goes.
Definitely. And I just want to say, I mean, again, with Hal earlier about bits of a robot being all over the arena, there was a lot in this one. You see this wonderful, like, zoomed out shot at the end of it, and there's just not a part of the battle box that hasn't got a bit of Rotator on it. It's literally just all over the place. Again, but the fact that it made it to the full 3 minutes, I mean, you've got to take your hat off to them for that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I did also like the little segment with Rotator in this episode, like, you know, rebuilding it after Tombstone. Yes, obviously it lost in the end, Tombstone, but it took it apart in the meantime, which was ridiculous. Honestly, Hal, have you got anything to add to this main event? I mean, it was good. It was great fun. I think probably one of the best of the season so far.
Yeah, you gotta like a robot that has a self-rider that looks like an arm with a knife.
Yes.
You can't beat it.
And they never use it because they don't need it.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I mean, it's as we said earlier with Cobalt, it's there in case of an emergency, which obviously it didn't face this time. The weapon just choked for 3 minutes. It was fantastic, and you know, I'm starting to get the impression. You know, I'm glad I put it in my prediction for a top 16 at the start of the season. I'm feeling very smug about that one, but you know, it's a credit to that team that they've managed to just tune it to such a point where it's able to take these hits from, say, Rotator and just keep going and, you know, give out the hits for 3 minutes and keep going as well. It's brilliant stuff, and I said the team can be very proud of their efforts with this season.
It kind of goes to what I said earlier, where all the robots are getting much better.
Yes. Yeah,
you know, and it's as a fan of the sport, that's really exciting for me. As someone who has to compete against all these amazing robots that won't die, it's pretty challenging.
Yeah.
To be fair, you've got one of those robots that doesn't die.
Yeah, but even when I don't die, it
when you were
gets
the
so
only
much
one,
damage.
wasn't
Yeah.
It's just everyone's getting so good, and they're coming from all over the world and getting sponsors, and technology's getting better. It's getting pretty brutal in there.
Yeah, it's like every fight is just like it's a rebuild after it rather than just I'll replace this bit. It's getting to that point.
Yep.
With that said, I think that pretty nicely sums things up. I have to say, Hal, thank you very much again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Sure, it's fun.
Thank you very much.
It's a little challenging to do without giving away anything. So
I imagine.
I don't think I gave away anything, did I? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
If so, edit it out.
Oh, don't worry.
We'll let you know.
I'll be all over that. I'll be on that like a rash. Don't you worry. And Shayne, thank you very much. For those that don't know Shayne, Shayne's a lovely guy. I said to him months ago we were going to get him on a podcast at some point this season. And literally half an hour before we started recording this, I said, "Hey, are you free in a bit?" And he just says, "Yeah, right then." And here he is. So thank you very much, Shayne, for your time. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude.
Anytime.
Did a good first job.
Yeah,
good
absolutely. With that said, I've been Sam at 64.
I've been Anson 913 the Robots Guru.
This is Hal Rucker from Team Black and Blue.
And this is Shayne.
And
The armchair roboteer. I think.
And myself and Anderson, at least, will see you next week for the 12th episode of BattleBots 2019. We'll see you then. Bye bye.